Greetings, AP Calculus students, to another day of reviewing for the AP Calculus exam. This is part 2 of how to use a calculator to find an integral. In part 1, we covered how to find an integral using a Ti-Inspire, which was the calculator that I encouraged you guys to hopefully pick up from Lakeview High School. What was that? I think last weekend. Now, in part 2, we're going to be covering some of the calculators, which I know some of you do have, which is either the Ti-83 Plus or the Ti-84 Plus. So that's the one that we're going to be covering today. Now, more specifically, we're going to be covering a more recent version of the operating system from Ti-84 for the Ti-84 Plus and Ti-83 Plus. The reason why I say that is because older versions of these models, finding integrals and finding derivatives is a little bit different. So that's why I'm splitting it up into a third video, which is going to follow, which is going to show the older version of this calculator, how to find an integral. But this video should go a little bit more smoothly than the Ti-Inspire one, because the Ti-Inspire one, I honestly am still getting more and more accustomed to it. The Ti-84 Plus and the Ti-83 Plus, I'm definitely a lot more familiar with them. So this should go a lot more quicker and a lot more smoother. So let's get to it. So once again, we're looking at the 2019 AP Calculus AB exam second free response question, which is a calculator question. So once again, I'm going to show you guys how to find an integral and basically how to do part C of that question, of that part of the question. All right, so first off, if you recall, they gave us a V sub Q equation, which we can see here, so V sub Q, and then they told us to ask, when is the velocity of the particle at least 60 meters per hour? So the way we did it is that we graphed the equation. So that's what we're going to do. So whether you have a Ti-84 Plus or a Ti-83 Plus, this is basically going to be the same. So the first thing you want to do is you want to press that Y equals button, which is literally the first button on the calculator. And this should be what your screen looks like at this point. And in this Y1 equals, you want to type in that V sub Q equation. So 45. The square root. The square root is, you find it right above this x squared. So I'm going to do second x squared. I'm going to do x. We're going to change it in terms of x. Now you want to press this right arrow button to get out of the square root. So you want to press this right arrow button to get outside of the square root. If you don't do that, you will remain inside the square root, which is what we don't want, since that cosine is not inside the square root. So when we do cosine 0.063 and then x squared. And then close parentheses, and that is our equation. Now, another thing you do want to make sure of, and this is a general piece of advice that you want to follow on the AP Calculus exam, and you do want to make sure your calculator is in radians mode. So if you press mode on your Ti-83 Plus or 84 Plus, if you press mode on it, you should get this screen. You do want to make sure this radian option is highlighted. And if it's not highlighted, let's say, for example, if it looks like this, see if it looks like this where degrees is highlighted, you want to scroll down to radian, highlight it, then press enter, and that way your calculator will be in radians mode. So you do want to make sure of that. So let me just get back to that Y equals. All right. So we're going to graph that equation. Now, if you recall, the other equation that we graphed was Y equals 60. Okay, we want to find where this curve goes above Y equals 60. So that's why we want to that's why we want to graph the Y equals 60 line as well. So now to graph both these equations, all we have to do is press this graph button, which is the last button in this row of buttons. So press the graph button, wait a few seconds. If you see this little scrolling bar here, it means the calculator is just loading. So as you can see, we don't really get a clear picture to this. So what we want to do next is we want to press this window button, which is right next to the Y equals button. We're not going to change anything with the X min or X max, but we will change something with the, whoa, what just happened? Alrighty then. Well, that's interesting. Looks like my buttons just disappeared. All right, well, I'll try to, let's see. Let's see what's going on here. Why did the buttons disappear? Let's see if this, nope, did nothing. If I minimize it, bring it back up, nope, did nothing. There you go. Oh, okay, cool. That was weird. I don't know why the buttons just disappeared. Okay, so we want to change this Y max here. So we're going to leave the Y min alone, but we're going to change the Y max to, let's do 70. Let's do 80. Let's do 80. We're going to change it to 80. So just type in 80. And now we're going to press graph again. We're going to press graph again, and this time we're going to get a much clearer picture. So that's our V sub Q graph, the curved one, and then that straight line is the Y equals 60 graph. So we can see just by looking at this image that we have two intersection points here. Now we're going to zoom in a little bit into here just to get a clearer picture. So if you press the zoom button, and then you're going to scroll, press down once to zoom in, press enter. Then we're just going to scroll using these arrow keys to around this part of the graph. Press enter, just to get a little clearer picture of exactly where the intersection points will be. Now we're going to be using another function here in a second to find exactly what those intersection points are, which, as we can see, ended up being 1.866 and 3.519. So what you want to do now is press second trace. So second button, then trace button, and you're going to get this screen now. Now you're going to see an option here, the fifth option, intersect. So you want to scroll down there, or you can just press the number 5. Went too far. Go to intersect, press enter, and now the first question it asks you is the first curve. So basically this is asking you, what is the first curve and then the second curve? They're going to intersect each other. So you typically just want to press enter. So we want the curve, and then the second curve, press enter again. And then for our guess, we're just going to scroll. So this is approximately, the calculator is asking us approximately where is the intersection. So we want to scroll to that first intersection by using these arrow keys, press enter, and we get that first intersection point of 1.866. All right, so now let's get to that second intersection point. So press second, trace again. This time I'm just going to press the number 5 for intersect. First curve, yes. Second curve, yes. Typically, you don't have to worry about that first curve and second curve question besides just pressing enter, unless you're graphing like 10 different graphs. In that case, you do have to make sure that you're highlighting the correct graph. But since we're only graphing 2 different things, and those are the only 2 graphs that we have, you can just press enter twice, and you're in the appropriate spot. So let's scroll to that second intersection point. So press enter again, and then the calculator gives us that 3.519, which is the other t value that we want. So that's how you find intersection points between 2 graphs. So let's get to the integral part. So to get out of this graph, you want to do second mode. So that brings us back to our blank screen, or home screen, in other words. And to find the integral button on the 84 plus or the 83 plus, you want to press the math button. And then you want to scroll down. So let's scroll down here. Scroll down to number 9, FNINT. This is the function, the integral function on the Ti-84 plus and the 83 plus. So number 9. So you're going to press enter there. And as you'll see, this ends up being very similar to the Ti Inspire, Now, if at this point the screen does not look the same, if at this point the screen does not look exactly like this, what you want to do is you want to watch part 3 of this series of videos, because that means you have the older software on your Ti-83 plus / 84 plus, which is perfectly fine. Like I said, I'm going to be making a video for that one too. So once again, if your video does not look exactly like this at this point, just make sure to go to part 3 and watch that video for specific instructions on how to input the integral. So as you can, at this point, we're literally just putting the interval. So 1.866, scroll up. 3.519. In the first video, I forgot to put the absolute value bars. This time I will not. So to find the absolute value bar on the 84 plus 83 plus, you want to go to math again. So press the math button, which is underneath that alpha button. And this time you want to press right. So we're in the math section. We want to go to this num section. So you want to press right once, and you have an ABS option. That's the absolute value bars. So make sure that's highlighted, press enter, and you get those absolute value bars that we wanted. So do the absolute value bar of that equation, which was, let me get it there. So 45 square root of t. You can put t, I'm going to change it to x. The reason why you can put t, I'll just show you guys how you would do t. You would have to press alpha 4. That's where the letter t is. So you can't do it that way, or you can just leave it in terms of x. Make sure you press right to get outside of the square root. Cosine 0.063. Oh, what happened there? Delete. Delete. Come on. There you go. And delete one more. Okay. 0.63. And then t squared. All right. Now we just got to make sure. Should be in. Oh, no. I thought it did the automatic parentheses. Did not close parentheses. Make sure you do that. All right. Now we got to make sure it's in terms of t. So alpha 4. Now if we press this enter button, it should give us our answer. 106.109, which is exactly what we originally got when we originally did this problem. Come on, there we go. 106.109 meters. So that is how you would find an integral using the 84 plus or 83 plus if you have the newer software. So once again, you go to math, and it's going to be the 9th option. So if you want to scroll down using the arrow keys, the 9th option. Or you can just literally just press 9, and then your integral shows up. The first space is your bottom interval value. Your second space is your top interval values. You want to put your expression inside that parentheses, and then finally the variable with which you are integrating with respect to. So that is how you find an integral, and a little extra stuff like finding the intersection of two graphs on an 84 plus or an 83 plus. So once again, if your screen did not look exactly like this when you press that FNINT option, make sure you go to part 3 of this series of videos. Make sure you go to part 3. I'll explain there how you would do the exact same thing using that little older model or older software of the operating system. Hopefully this video went smoothly. People, please, let me know any comments. If something does not make sense, reach out to me. Feel free. Otherwise, I hope you guys are staying safe. I hope you guys are staying healthy. And I wish that you guys enjoy the rest of your days. See you later.